get started. Who's ready to learn? Very fun. Hi everybody, I'm Chris Stengel, in case you didn't know. I just want to point out that you all missed the iPad we had taped right to that chair. So nobody wins it today. Think about it for next time. Sorry. Hopefully everybody has seen the link, gone to the website, signed up for the sessions you want today. Not necessarily the ones at 2 and 3 o'clock, okay? We're going to gather back here at 2 o'clock and we're going to talk about it and then we're going to go. Okay? So let's talk about how the day is laid out a little bit. This is me. There's session 1, session 2. Hopefully everyone has signed up for something. Then we have lunch at 11:30. Session 3 at 1 o'clock, and again, right after our 1 o'clock session, we're going to call everybody back in here to talk EdCamp. What is EdCamp? Hopefully you all read the email from me that explains a little bit about what EdCamp is, but we're going to have a little set of words about it and hopefully make everybody feel comfortable. It's a great format. Has anyone been to an EdCamp? Oh, good. All right. Bridget will be helping.
Anybody agrees with her?
Great. I want to give some quick thank yous out. This is Kathy Schrock. I'll do a better introduction in a second. Drs. Irvin and Murray for helping us organize today. I want to thank your tech coaches. Tech coaches in the room, raise your hand. Your tech coaches have volunteered and given their time and slaved over making this day something that's beneficial to you and provides the best opportunity for you to learn things about how to use technology to help your students learn. It's great. I want to thank the tech department, and I want to thank the session presenters today. Session presenters, raise your hand. These are the givers, and we encourage you to be a giver at the next in-service as well. So, here's some things about Kathy. She's a lot of these things, right? But I just wanted to tell the story. Last night, I was out with Kathy. We were talking about when we go to conferences, and our strategies for signing up for sessions. You get the whole list, just like you all did for today, and Kathy goes through and reads what they are. Titles, what they're supposed to be about, picks the ones. She's like blind to the presenter. And I have to confess that sometimes, always, I go the other way, and I pick my favorite presenters. And it almost doesn't matter what they're presenting, because I know I'm going to love it. But I massage and I work it. But Kathy Schrock is someone whose name I always star. Never miss her presentation at a conference. And I know you will all enjoy her today. So I'm thrilled to have her. I know by the end of today you will all be thrilled that we had her. And I want to welcome her. So let's put it together for Kathy.
There's no pressure at all. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. I spent a lot of time with Chris and with Bridget last evening, and you guys are so lucky with what you have, as opposed to the rest of the world. So every day come in and go about everything. So thank you for having me. So I feel technology can support teaching and learning in a meaningful way, and of course, I'm pretty sure you do too. As educators, we try new ideas, we try new hardware and software as they become available. But how do you decide on your real passion, the thing that you want to develop? Here's the URL, and I'll show this again later, to everything that I'm going to be talking about. And there's a lot. So how many people have heard me present before? Yeah, and Bridget, do I go fast? Yes, and I give tons of information. We only have 156 slides, so just hold tight. So I thought we should start with a definition of passion. So I asked 3 of my friends. Hey, Echo, what is the definition of passion?
The word passion has several different uses as a noun. 1, a strong feeling or emotion. 2, the trait of being intensely emotional. 3, something that is desired intensely. 4, an irrational but irresistible motive for a belief or action.
I like the last one. Hey Google, what is the definition of passion?
Passion, strong and barely controllable emotion.
Hey Siri, what is the definition?
I'm happy.
Okay.
Strong and barely controllable emotion.
So both moving along, Siri and Echo have the same definition. So they use the same dictionary, which is kind of odd, being Google and Apple. I thought that was odd, but the Alexa gave a much more in-depth definition. I like the irrational part of it. So Greta Gordon-Barnes writes about finding your passion. She states, when developing a passion, there's some things you should think about. Start with the right perspective, and choose to adopt the perspective that you can do what you love. One of the best ways to strengthen this point of view is to find others with people who are doing so already. How many of your colleagues, you don't have to raise your hand here, how many of your colleagues are following their passion? If you can't find someone who's as passionate about something as you are, obviously there's the online world where you can, Twitter and Instagram, you can find people that are passionate and be inspired by it. Get out your metal detector. Once you've decided your EdTech passion is findable, it's time to look for evidence of something that you already do that you love. If you scan your EdTech landscape, you'll find experiences pop up. It's valuable to delve into these special moments and identify the key components. Make a list of those components that truly mattered in those experiences. So this will be one of them when you're done here. Look for the umbrella. When you look for the component that matters most to you, they might at first seem entirely disconnected. This is the time to look beyond them and seek an umbrella, the overarching view of that passion. Discern between a hobby and a passion. It might be that through the exploration you find something that you fall head over heels in love with, that engrosses you, something that lights you up and makes your heart sing. Be alert as to who might need your newly emerging passion. Students, administrators, parents, and have conversations with them to get you clearer on where and when this EdTech passion of yours can help them. Expect the mutiny. When you seek your passion, there'll be parts of you that go into rebellion. We all have a huge number of fears around failure, success, visibility, and vulnerability that speak in sensible voices, instructing us that we mustn't do what we love. Look for the fear beneath each supposedly reasonable voice. Uncover those years of conditioning from parents, schools, partners, and colleagues, and reassure the mutinying parts that your ship is sailing in the right direction. Find the limits of your bravery. Discover what risks work for you. The path of passion is when you do things that scare you enough without leaving you in a constant state of fear. Expand your comfort zone into a courage zone, rather than panicking. As you're exploring new things, you have to realize that you have to embrace failure. Case Phillips suggests you have to learn to love the challenge and consider the worst and best that come from taking the risk. The stakes just mean you're trying. When you find your EdTech passion, be assured it'll always guide you right. So I've spent a lot of time looking at my EdTech passions over the years, and they often change. I have pretty strong opinions on what does work for education and what doesn't. So if you're looking at my site and there's something there that's missing, and you write me a note and say, oh, you don't have anything about this, I'll write back and I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't think of that. Well, I did. I don't think it's important, and I just don't say that out loud. so there's something really passionate about, it's not there, I'm sorry I'm not. So, now, just a reminder, I am retired, right? I left the schools a couple of years ago, so I have a lot of time, not still working, but I am retired. And I have a lot of time to devote to each passion. But I'm encouraging you to find one passion and develop it deeply. All right? I have time to develop all of my silos. So I have enough passions for every hour of the day. One of my passions is to be the first one to own any new gadget. Who's with me on that? Who's up at 3 a.m. signing to get their new iPhone, right? Over the years, I've been the owner of some very leading edge technologies, and also some that didn't last very long on the EdTech horizon. How many of you remember any of these tools? This is my first personal computer, and before the single floppy disk drive was available, you put the programs in with an audio cassette recorder. So that was very cool, but very cumbersome. Imagine running an operating system and Microsoft Word off a 1.2 megabyte, 5¼ inch floppy disk. This 30-pound transportable was the one I brought to school, attached a modem to, and introduced my teachers to the text-based internet before the web. And it still works. The Palm Pilot was one of the first personal digital assistants, and some of us were trained to use that. Palm had a Palm Educator training program where they brought us all together and they taught us how to use the device. The Sony Mavica used a 3.5-inch diskette for photo storage. It was so exciting to be able to take the picture, take the floppy disk out, stick it in the computer, and voila, you had the picture on the computer. And the young people are like, what is she talking about? I have no idea. The Rocket ebook was the first ebook reader, and it could hold a whopping 26 books. Battery life was, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes. This Casio watch could control a VCR and got my son in a lot of trouble in 6th grade when he fast-forwarded through a boring science video. The teacher had no idea. So the Audrey was a home internet appliance that included a shared calendar synced from all the Palm Pilots in your house. Now, I was the only one in my house. And when the email came in, that stylus blinked. It's kind of like the top of the Empire State Building with that email. I truly believe I bought the only one of these. Of course, I had to have the first iPod. I was passionate about Second Life, which is still a virtual world, but for a while, we educators were in there a lot. Lighthouse Learning Island, my superintendent let me buy a virtual island after he went in and saw that Second Life wasn't really all skeevy, but there was a lot of skeevy places. We bought the island, and we had 6 real-life educational, 4 educational agencies and 2 school districts, and we did real-life professional development as our avatars in Second Life. It was kind of nifty, because no matter where you are in this virtual island, you can just pull a whiteboard right out of your pocket, put it up, and run a slideshow on it. So of course, I was there many years with Verizon, but when the first iPhone came out, AT&T was the only one that carried it, and you actually had to go to an Apple store and get it put on AT&T there. So I waited, I don't know, 7-8 hours online to get that. So from July through December 2008, Google had a virtual world. It was called Google Lively. I'm sure no one in this room has heard of it except for me. So any Google certified teachers here, or do they call it something else now? Okay, so back then you had to turn in a 1-minute video to see if you could get accepted to go to the training. So here's a little bit of my video.
Hello, this is Kathy Schrock, Administrator for Technology for the Nauset Public Schools on Cape Cod. Welcome to my Google Lively room. My vision of classroom innovation begins with the teachers feeling comfortable trying new things and being.
So that took 6 hours to make. And the reason was the rooms had fixed furniture in them. So you took your mouse and you talked at the same time, so the mouse kind of moved. It was blowing up there because it was really physically tiny. And you pulled your avatar forward. Well, I kept running into furniture and falling over. So it took 6 hours to find the path through to make my 1 minute. All right, so, sorry, back to sound. You're seeing it, I can't see it on the screen. And of course, we all make expensive mistakes at times. We figured Google would stop supporting Google Glass. I live in a place where there's no Wi-Fi anywhere. I live on Cape Cod, so there's not a lot of Wi-Fi. So I just wear mine around. And Cape Cod's like 65% retired. So I see the older people looking at me, whispering to their partners, saying, that girl has some kind of eye injury. And then I go in the supermarket with it on, not on, because there was no Wi-Fi, and kids would start following me. So all they wanted to do was put them on and take a selfie. They could care less what they could do. That was pretty fun, but it wasn't worth $1,700. So I got my Amazon Echo on day 1, and I love the way they keep adding new features every day. I have been studying ways it can be used in the classroom to support teaching and learning. I'm not talking about that here, but I'll talk about that with you if you'd like. And of course, when I got the Apple Watch, I could do much more than control VCR. And this watch band with a photo camera and a FaceTime camera is due out to me from Kickstarter sometime in this century, and so I'm waiting for that. And as I try all the new options, I live by this motto: buy it, try it, sell it on eBay. So if you ever need any gadgets, I don't keep them very long, so I'll put you on the list. So while I'm waiting patiently for my new technology to arrive in the mail, I have a lot of time to investigate my other passions. One thing that I really believe in is that any technology used in the classroom should be meaningful and support the higher order thinking skills. Having a device available for each student is great, but without a change in pedagogical practice, it still looks like this. The 2 models we most often refer to when thinking about technology use in the classroom are Bloom's revised taxonomy and the SIMR model. Bloom's helps teachers design a task that targets the higher order thinking skills, while SIMR helps educators design a task that has a significant impact on student outcomes. I believe the goal is to develop assessments that target the areas in color, both the higher order thinking and the transformation level of SAMR. The technology tool does not determine what level it's at. Just because if it's a new tool, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to change your teaching practices. Creative assessment does. So a lot of schools and districts, I didn't even ask Chris this, you guys use a model? Use the SAMR or no? Anybody use SAMR? Raise your hand. Okay, so don't. All right? If you look at the words, it's very esoteric. I don't believe it's practical. So Jen Roberts took SAMR and turned it into something that looked practical and is easy for you to assess. It's easy for you to create sub-goals as you're creating your goals, and it's easy for administrators to talk to you about it, as opposed to something that was previously inconceivable, which is in SAMR. So you see it, it's substitution, right? Just substitute technology for the worksheet. Augmentation, it acts like a substitute, but has functional improvement. And then modification. Technology allows for significant task redesign, and in redefinition, sorry, one. Sorry. This is why I don't like SAMR. Redefinition. Technology allows for the creation of new tasks previously inconceivable. Previously inconceivable to me is different than previously inconceivable to any one of you in here. So you're not a real tech-savvy teacher, you do this really cool thing, you've never knew you could do that before. That's an R for you, right? Administrator who's tech-savvy comes in and say, really? This is substitution. So people aren't on the same playing field. With Jen Roberts, she targets practical tasks. Teacher designs the unit using pedagogy with technology support. She uses multiple tools, he or she uses multiple tools to enhance the learning experience. The students get their choice of schools, and then in the handoff, the learning experience is handed off to the students to get complete choice of tools and methods to showcase their learning. That's when you have to just step back and be brave, because you never know what you're going to get. And as I stated before, and as this image from William Ferreter shows, it's not about technology as a tool, but about thinking through what we want our students to know and be able to do. In addition to a change in pedagogy, I'm passionate about students being able to find their own place in a classroom, to work on their own or with others, whether at a desk, sitting on a chair, or sitting on the floor. I've always been more comfortable, as you can see from these two pictures, sitting on the ground or floor. I find it very hard to sit still at a desk. This means classroom, furniture, and design need to be fluid, with comfy chairs and nooks and crannies. Think of what the modern-day kindergarten class looks like. All classes should look like that. Colorful, standard seating, but story nooks, floor cushions, and bright colors. In elementary, you probably have a lot more of this than secondary, but secondary should be the same way. So why not make a middle or high school classroom that looks like this? It has standard seating, seating nooks, or places to be alone. I'm the worst person in a group. I have to be an alpha. So I always have to work by myself. So I need a place with a Carol and no one else bothering me. This 7th grade teacher has used what's in her classroom and some inexpensive plastic chairs to get flexible seating in her classroom. So it doesn't have to be expensive. It just has to be movable. We better get students interested in working in an environment like this, because in the work world, they'll be working in an office that looks like these of Facebook, Google Zurich, Skype, and my favorite, Adams and Knight. I mean, I want to work in a diner. Go back, get yourself a malted, come back, meet with your friends. All right. So I'm also passionate about the role of emerging technologies that may not have been yet used to support teaching and learning. What impact they can play in the future. The best place to investigate these emerging technologies used to be the K-12 Technology Horizon Report, which was put out each year. However, late in November 17, they went bankrupt. Well, how it worked was the panel of educators, they had like 40 or 50 educators, the COSIN and NMC would give us all this background research into each one of the topics. Some of the topics I'd get to, I'm like, I have no idea what that even means. They'd give us background. Then we had to add, we went in and we added things that we knew, projects, resources, things we believed in to each of these. And then we would just come to consensus. So we'd get these 50 topics down to 12 and then get them down to 6. And it was voting, wasn't consensus, so for the last 6. So that was really tough. There's a big push among people who really wanted theirs to be on the list. Now you have to understand that some of these people gave out grants. So if theirs got in there, they'd be so happy because they would get more money for their topic. So some of it I think was self-serving, but that's just. So if you take a look at the planning wiki, you can see, you can learn a lot about each one of these 50 topics. So if you're doing a PLC with anybody and you want to study any of this, there's so much background information already there. So don't go looking on the web about these topics. Just go here, start there, and there'll be plenty of resources for you. But luckily, COSIN has found some really good sponsors and created a new project called Driving K-12 Innovation that was released in 2019 in 3 separate parts. Works the same way, 50 people, but there's three pieces of material that get released. The first is hurdles, which are obstacles that make participants slow down, evaluate, practice, and then make the leap to better teaching and learning. Accelerators are megatrends that drive change, sometimes over time so gradually it's not even noticed. And tech enablers are tools that support similar, smoother leaps over the hurdles and the changes. So the top 5 hurdles were schools have trouble scaling innovation, digital equity on the whole playing field can play a role, the difficulty of teachers keeping up and addressing technology and pedagogy, the lack of sustained professional development, and the need for educators to embed emerging technologies, digital fluency, and digital citizenship skills also in the curriculum. The accelerators, schools are embracing real-world experiences now. They're leveraging their data to for informed decisions. Schools are finding their way to offer student choice, voice, and autonomy to personalize the learning experience. Teachers are embracing design thinking, which has students developing solutions based on empathy and iterative changes. And school leaders are taking the actions necessary to strengthen the professional community of their schools, which is very important. The tech enablers, right, needed to move the hurdles, one-to-one mobile devices with internet access, a mix of face-to-face and online learning, right, blended learning, software and services in the cloud, accessible from any device, anywhere, using XR, which is a combination of AR and VR, and mixed reality to help students learn complex content and expand and individualize student experiences, and technologies that measure, analyze, and customize student learning. Of course, it's not just about the technology, but what you do with it. One emerging use of technology I'm passionate about is sketchnoting. Kevin Thorne offers this great definition. Anybody a sketchnoter in here? Oh man. So if there was someone, they would have to start sketchnoting this, because what you do is you listen, you synthesize, and you visualize. Right? It's really hard. I'm going to tell you that it's easy. Well, I'm a left-brainer. It's hard for me. You right-brainers, not a problem. So it helps you understand material and remember what you're learning. They're created with simple things like lines and arrows and boxes. Right? You don't have to be an artist to do it. And in reality, the sketch note is only for you. So in my school, they used to do interactive notebooks where the student would take regular notes here and then go home in the evening and create a product over here that showed that they synthesized that information. It could be a comic, it could be many things. But if you were doing it with sketchnoting, you could say, well, now this has to be turned into a sketch note. Your summary of the information. You can look at it, you can tell them if they got the content wrong, but you can't tell them that it's not a good representation or whatever, because it is only for you. And the research supports the use of sketchnoting. Mike Road is the man who coined the word sketchnote. He talks about the research done by Alan Pavio, in which he discovered that the brain processes information using both visual and verbal clues and makes connections between them. This is called the dual coding theory. So if you ever want to write a grant for something, look for dual coding theory, and that can be your basis. Road contends that sketchnoting engages the whole mind, improves your memory and recall, allows you to create a visual map of the information you're hearing, and also keeps you concentrating fully on the task at hand. A student cannot get off task if they're sketchnoting. That's good about it. Many teachers are having students create sketch notes as an assessment. This is Brent Pillsbury. He shares the samples of his high school students' sketch notes dealing with the First World War.
Heather Marshall is a 6th grade English, World History, and Media Studies teacher. She taught the sketchnoting basics to her students and had them do sketch quoting. So they took a quote from a book they were reading and just did a sketch quote. So there's all these different versions of that. Brad Ovenall Carter, he has created a Google Plus group, which is now somewhere else. I have a link to it on the page. Sketchnote Scribes, which is a place where K-12 teachers and students can submit and get feedback on their, not on the content, but feedback on their sketch notes so they become better sketch notes. One of my pages, I have a web page that has 50 different things. One of them deals totally with sketch notes, has lessons for K, 1, 2, all kinds of things in there. So if you're interested in trying this yourself first and then trying it with students, it's well worth it. Fostering student creativity for creation of assessments is another one of my passions. I'm a fan of the model that Kristen Hicks put out in this Edudemic article about ways to bring creativity in the classroom. Hicks recommends allowing students the freedom to create their assessment using a tool of their choice, whether it be a comic strip, creating a video, making a podcast, or whatever they come up with. Could just be hand drawing. She suggests providing genius time either during the day or sometime during the week, where students can collaborate if they want. Remember me, not collaborate. Build, develop, code, create, or simply learn more about something that they're interested in. She suggests using technology to cross the curriculum areas, for instance, using Google Maps alongside of a novel, or using Skype or Twitter for interviews with people. What about having students create a TED Talk about a chapter in the science book, or creating an XKCD comic strip, or creating a Facebook page for an igneous rock? All right, Hicks suggests you have some unconventional tools at your fingertips. Finally, Hicks believes that having students understand the Socratic seminar method can lead to critical listening and good questioning and respecting the opinions of others. It's hard for students to be creative if they're going to get some negative feedback. I always say, and people argue with me, but I believe it, any feedback you give in social media areas should be positive or neutral. If you have a negative thing, just tell that person directly. No need for the rest of the world to see your argument. Right, so that's what I believe in. Carmen Richardson is an ITS at the Kamehameha schools in Hawaii, and Kunya Mishra is a dean of the Teachers College in Arizona State. Developed an instrument to figure out if a student classroom is conducive to creativity. First, it must include a flexible environment for work areas of students, multitude resources like the 2nd grade classroom of Alicia Knapp, who's a teacher in Dunlap CSD in Peoria, Illinois. Secondly, a classroom that is conducive to creativity is messy and noisy, has students participating in discussions, allows for collaboration, and one in which different points of view are valued. The final component of a classroom that's conducive to creativity is engaged students who work at their own pace on open-ended, authentic tasks, seek many viewpoints and use different methods of investigation, take risks and reflect on their learning, and have the time to think creatively and develop their ideas. So I just love this Einstein quote. Okay, next, having students create some kind of digital story is often used as a classroom assessment. However, I'm passionate about teachers using storytelling to impart content. Why should students use that? The research supports it. Research shows that the only areas of your brain, which is how this is, that get activated during lectures like this, are Broca's and Wernicke's areas. These are the language processing areas of the brain where we decode words into meaning, and then that's it. It's like, I'm not giving you any time to reflect, right? You just, but that's what happens. However, research has proven that this is what your brain looks like when reading or listening to a story. When we are reading or being told a story, the areas of our brain that we would use while actually experiencing the events of the story become active too. When our brain is emotionally charged, we remember and we recall the content better. And as we're listening to a story, we're always tying it to our past experiences. So if research states when listening to stories, many areas of the brain are activated, and we search for personal connections to our previous experiences, which then leads us to learn and retain the content more easily, why not use storytelling to teach your content? If you feel uncomfortable about creating a story, here are a few tips from Amy York and Molly Brennan. use what they use. If your students probably aren't, but older students would be using some social media, tell the story there. Be purposeful, make sure your students know why all of a sudden you're telling them a story, that it's content related, there's some information in there, but I thought I might try to tell you something in a different way. Be clear and succinct. Humans are only able to pay attention for 10 minutes, so you're done now. Make sure you don't tell a story that lasts longer than 9 minutes. And practice makes perfect. The more you practice the story, the better it comes out. I believe students need to travel outside the classroom to become good global citizens. Learning about other cultures and places is a part of the digital literacy skill set. One of my current passions that supports this is the area of virtual reality in the classroom. And Maria Galanis and Andrew Trudeau have a great top 10 list of using VR. Obviously, students can visit places all over the world without leaving the classroom. With 360 VR images, they can physically stand up, turn around, look up, look down, and see everything, which is good and bad. If you want them to look at something, this is how you tell. If you're showing something and you want everybody to look at that castle, and this person's facing this way, they're not looking at the castle. So you can tell physically by the students. They all, I know it looks like kind of, futuristic, because everybody's looking in the same direction, but you do give them time to explore. VR videos also, all right, we're going to see some of that. As 360 cameras become more prevalent and are cheap as dirt, the news media is starting to incorporate 360 images on all their sites. Students can start to develop empathy by looking at all points of view. Real estate agents hate it because you can't hide that little crack in the house. So I did some 360 work for real estate agents, and they would leave out the ones that showed any defect. They only put the ones where everything looked good, because you can't hide anything, which is interesting. Police, fire, tradesmen, and doctors have used simulations for years, although now they're using VR, as opposed to just they're working on a simulation on a computer. Being immersed in the solar system, or swimming with sharks, or looking at the Great Barrier Reef from all angles is now available with VR images and video. Many reenactments of historical events are now being filmed or photographed, mostly filmed in VR. So when they do the Gettysburg, someone's doing that 360, your students can be there. They can look at everything that's going on. The human body has always fascinated students, and there are tons of things to investigate inside and outside the body with VR. Of course, I'm all about educators creating their own 360 images to share with the world, and I talk about that process a little later on, and students can create them too. I have my graduate students doing it right now. It's not a pretty sight, but you get better. Real estate, medicine, engineering, and entertainment have become big users of VR for both marketing and training purposes. There are tons of examples of these on the web. If you're going to talk about bias in advertising or something, you can find an ad in 360 and talk about that. There are many curriculum-related images and VR videos available that are free. Discovery VR, Google Expeditions, and the New York Times VR collection are just some of them. So it's not hard to find these things. And of course, the engagement factor is a big deal. Especially if you're wearing a headset, there's no way you can look anywhere else. I don't recommend well, I'll talk about this in VR, but I don't recommend headsets for like K1, 2, 3, because they will just fly off down the stairs. Some teachers put up like do not cross tape and this little corral in their classroom to keep the kids in because they're and I have done the same thing. So the more you're immersed, the more real it seems. I told this to Chris last night. I got an Oculus Quest, and no, it's when I got the Oculus Go, which is a full-featured computer in a headset, and it was in my kitchen. And of course, I'd done Second Life, where I was always looking at my avatar's eyes, walking around, right? So I'm in the kitchen, and I'm like, oh, I'm in my little Oculus room. I'm like, this is great. This is cool. There's a couch. I sat down. Yeah, right to the floor, right? And it just, I mean, I use VR all the time, and it just completely made me engaged in where I was. So the cost to get involved in VR in the classroom, the most expensive part, of course, is the device. If you have access to iPads, which I think most of you do, at least have access to them, it's perfectly good to have them not swipe a 360 image, but there's another view of 360 images where they can turn around, but they're not obliterating the rest of the world, right? It's not quite as engaging, but it's certainly worthwhile. So somebody, I was after people to create one just for schools for a long time. The Magellan U2 is a device that is a total phone, except it doesn't have a SIM card. So they created this to use, because there's certain things that have to be in a device that you're using to view VR to make the VR work. And then the new iPod that was released in May will do, Apple created it especially for VR and AR. So if you want to have you need a new classroom set of those, you can get that. All right, so the first thing you need is the head-mounted display. Right, these are the real powerful ones. And then a simple piece of cardboard that you build yourself works just as well. You take this on the smartphone. If you're doing headsets, the apps are on the smartphone. You stick it in the front. The most affordable displays are the Google Cardboard and the ViewMaster VR. I like the ViewMaster VR because it's plastic and washable, right, as opposed to cardboard that picks up germs. If after Christmas you go to TJ Maxx and you see a zillion VR headsets for sale for $1, you're like, yeah, Kathy said do this. We'll buy all of these for our classroom. Just make sure they have a little QR code on them that looks like that on the device itself. Because your phone, everybody's VR viewer is different. Sometimes the lenses are out here, sometimes the lenses are out here. You need to take a picture of that so your device, whatever device, even if you're using an iPad, whatever device you're using knows what headset you're using. All right, so the cheap ones don't have that. You can get a high school physics major to figure it out for you, but just look for that. 360 images are the bomb, all right? The Ricoh Theta V is the one that I have, but the Ricoh Theta SC is down to like $120. It does 5 minutes of continuous video. You can do multiple continuous video, and holds tons of pictures. All you do is put it on the tripod, move your body somewhere where you can't be seen in the picture, and use your phone to trigger it. And it goes beep, and it's done, and it's beautiful and perfect. There are all types of cool tools for VR. Google Expedition. How many have done Google Expedition in their classroom? Okay, great. It allows a teacher to guide students who are all using a device or a head-mounted display through trips created by Google. However, there's now a solo mode. Before, you had to be a teacher and then a student. The student couldn't use it on their own. Now there's a solo mode that anybody can use. So it allows students to do this. And so once you have the headset on, that's the Google Cardboard view. Each one of those pictures is a little bit different than the other. And so it gives you the impression that it's three-dimensional. Test out of the UK has a ton of curriculum-related lessons which utilize Google Expeditions, and there are thousands of things in Google Expeditions. In 2018, Google created Tour Creator, which allows anyone to create their own expedition. So you could go take 360 pictures places, stick it in Google Tour Creator, and then put tags on it. So here's how you go through a tour. I'm just using my finger. But there are hotspots allowed that will pop up and explain something. So a student can take a 360 image with a cheap 360 camera or with another method we'll talk about in the VR session, and then stick them in here and have these pop-ups which explain what you're looking at. If you have an Android device, you can view the tours with a VR headset. All right? It's not available for iOS yet. How do you find images to use? The Flickr 360 group has 22,000 images. You'll probably find something to support your curriculum there. I wouldn't send students there, because who knows what's going to show up, but you can find things. Download them, put them in your camera roll or gallery, put them in Google Drive so they can get them on their device. In order to provide teachers and students with Creative Commons license images, I created a Google group called 360 Images for School, and I asked educators and students to create images and throw it up there. Not your classroom, but something in your area that people from other areas might want to see. So please do that. I'm a fan of augmented reality also. Augmented reality is more about consumption rather than creation, though, most of the time. How many people have used AR in the classroom? Same person. All right. So Google released Google Expeditions AR as part of the Expedition app, and it has tons of things. I just want you to watch the expressions on the students.
pretend you're an airplane and fly over the tornado.
What do you see?
These are asteroids, meteoroids.
We're learning about DNA and genes, things that we can't see. And so the most exciting thing for me with the AR technology was that I could see kids get an aha moment that I couldn't get by just telling them about it.
So in your classroom, if they have iPads, you could have different markers on the floor for different things. Everyone, like, the whole class doesn't have to be grouped around watching that particular tornado. You could have a tornado here, you could have a hurricane there, whatever. And it's like students can go from one to another and explore. I've been a champion of the next. So how many people are overwhelmed already? So when you have your, downtime, you can go to the webpage and then you'll say, but I'm just hoping that you find something that you might be interested in, and if not, go find your own passion, that's fine. So I've been a champion for the protection of intellectual property of others for years. My gut feeling is if we don't help protect that, nobody's going to put anything of worth on the web. But the development of the Creative Commons project, which allows a creator to explicitly state up front how the material can be used, has been a big help with this. How many people have not used Creative Commons? Okay. So I didn't understand it when it first came about. So what it does, I take a picture and I put it up on Flickr. And then I say, people can use it this way. So I go to Germany and I take the Heidelberg Castle and I put it on there. And somebody's studying German and, oh look, there's a picture of the Heidelberg Castle, can I use that? Well, I can say, I always have to say, if you use my picture, you have to give me attribution, right, where I got it. A link to where it is for elementary is fine, where they found it is fine. I can tell you whether, if you're doing something commercial, like writing a book on Heidelberg, whether you can use it commercially or non-commercially. I state this ahead of time. I can state whether you can change image. And then, if you're allowed to change my image, I can state, I don't have to state, but I can state your image has to have that same license. So if you take my cow in the field, and you take my cow out of the field, and you put the cow in bases, and then you then have to license yours, so someone can take the cow out of bases and put the cow, on the prairie, right? So students hate the one that says, if you change mine, you have to license yours. There's so many images out there to use. They can find a cow in a field that they can change and not have to let someone change theirs. The big three search engines have made this very, very easy to find Creative Commons images. So I'm just assuming that you know. I never assume anything. If you grab an image from Google Images and you put it in something and you give it a citation to where you found it and then you publish it, like you put it, something online for students. It's not behind a firewall. You can't do that. You don't have permission to do that. Your fair use rights, students can do that, pretty much. They have much bigger fair use rights than we do. So, to keep yourself out of trouble, and it isn't the school district that gets in trouble, it's you. So, and it's $50,000 each occurrence, so you don't want to do it. Right? Now they're like, oh my God, this is when they start giving me the, I don't hate this. So, in the big three search engines, they're all there. In Google, after you do a search and you click on tools, you get another menu labeled usage rights. All you do is choose one that you have permission to use or change or use commercially or non-commercially. Once you do that and you supply attribution, you're golden. On the iPad, unfortunately, this works a little differently. You have to open Safari, do a search, then you see the mobile version of Safari. You have to click on the share button to get the desktop site. And once you get the desktop site, it looks just like the desktop. It used to be there, they took it out. In Flickr, after you conduct a search, you can see the Any License menu right on the menu bar. So students don't have to go to the Creative Commons sites to search for Creative Commons material. They can just use the search engines that they use. And in Bing, I won't say this out loud here because your Windows district, but the 3 or 4 of you that are still using Bing. If you limit your search to images, you can see the license menu right there. And what's nice about the Bing is it gives you a little explanation in layman's terms that you can help explain to your students. Okay, now you hate me, but I'm sorry. Now I can see you taking down your slideshows right now. So I'm passionate about students creating products as a formative or summative assessment that show their acquisition of content knowledge. I'm past consumption. I'm really all about creation now. But I want them to show it in their own unique way. There are so many apps and tools at the creating level, it's a tad overwhelming. Students can easily find sites that, the top 10, the top 20, the top 30, that's everybody's opinion. But they can find if you want them to find a tool that can do this, have them do a search, the top 10 sites for digital storytelling, and then look at the reviews and compare and contrast a few, and try to come up with their own, or try them out, which is sometimes cumbersome. There are two trains of thought about using creative apps in the classroom. Some teachers either provide or allow students to pick a single tool that does a single thing perfectly. All right? Other schools, there are a few identified apps and tools that do many things. All right? These tools are the Swiss Army knives of apps and tools. All right? Explain everything, Padlet, Canva, Notability, OneNote, you can use those for tons of different things. So you have to decide, they're not, each one does many things, one thing really well, everything else okay. So you don't know, you have to decide, do you want them to use this tool that does this thing really well, or one of these where they can do this one thing and then do some other things. Right? But you have to have some identified. My favorite is the Adobe Spark suite, which is available on iPad and on Chromebook and laptop. And it's an integrated suite of tools. So there were tons of good ideas for educators already available. Spark Post is basically a picture with words on it. Spark Page is a really cool looking web page. It takes all the web page design out of it so the students concentrate on their content. It does all those slide overs that you see on the web now, and it makes everybody's stuff look great. Of course, content is king, but it does make it look good. And then Spark Video. Images or videos, you do one at a time. You can record behind each one if you're using images. The reason I like it is you record behind one, then you go to the next one, record behind that one and that one. So you don't have to record behind 3 and then make a mistake and have to go back and start all over. You can rearrange them and you click a button and they turn into a very serviceable video. They're easy peasy. So if you're looking for some place to start, you guys have the tools already to do this. How many people use Spark? Okay, this is on your list. The online Spark pages have inspiration galleries for many topics, including education, that showcase all the tools. So here's a sample of an Adobe Spark video used for advocacy by a technology director. It's simple to create and powerful. We have no sound, but there's music, just hum. She's not saying anything. Right? Didn't take long for her to create that. I'm passionate about educators having a professional learning network outside of their school or district. They can learn from others and offer their own thoughts of ideas because they're as creative as anybody else. I truly believe Twitter is the best place to hone your personal learning network, your professional learning network, excuse me. Personal is the other one that you don't share with your colleagues. You'll find educators who can support you, you'll find validation for your ideas, and every educator has something to give. For administrators and teacher leaders, Twitter will provide you with ways to keep up with new information, as well as give you ideas for how to lead change. And remember, it's all well and good to take the time to learn from others, but a true network leader should give back. So George Couros wrote an article about how to become a network leader, and this could be a teacher leader also. And his ideas include share educational articles that influence your thinking. If you find something cool, share it with your PLN. Share meaningful quotes. Ask your PLN for help on initiatives, and retweet your favorite findings to those that follow you. How many people are on Twitter? Yeah, not enough hands, all right? How many people love Twitter? All right? I have a lot of people that follow me. I do not follow all of them, sorry. I follow the people who feed me, right? I try to keep feeding others, And I look at everyone that follows me, and if they don't have educator in their bio and they look like they're a for-profit company or they're someone I don't even want to know, I block them. All right, so you don't have to have everybody follow you. Then they can't see my stuff. I want to make sure that I'm talking to my homies, my educational technology people. One place to do this is to participate in Twitter chats. So Twitter chats are scheduled, moderated chats with posed questions. So the one that's a big one is the assistive technology one. But for leaders, SAT chat, superintendent chat, ed admin, and ed leader. And ed chat, AT chat, Be More Ed chat, Kinder chat, ELEM chat, and MS chat. So you can find any time of day or night, find a Twitter chat to participate in. And what a Twitter chat is I'm the moderator, and I have a series of, let's say, 5 questions. Maybe a half hour, right? 5 questions. And I type Q for question, and I type a question. And then all you type, and a hashtag. Hashtag keeps all the Twitter chats together. So these are the hashtags. So let's say it's an ed chat. I type, how do you keep students from something in your classroom? And then I type hashtag ed chat. Then as the person going to this, you're just looking at the question, they don't know who you are, and you type A1, answer 1, and you type I do this, blah, 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 ed chat. Or I found this resource to help, ed chat. And then they say Q2. And you can still put in answer 1, because it takes me a long time sometimes to type the answers. But when it's done, if you go to that hashtag ed chat, you'll see everything that went on. Even if you have to leave, to go pick up the babies. You can see the questions, the answers, the questions, the answers, the questions, the answers. And you don't have to sign up, you don't have to do anything, you just have to go to one. And they're on, you name it, they're very specific to content areas for secondary, and they're a little broader for elementary, right? So there are tons of them. When you are using Twitter, I have a few tips and tricks. Here are some of them. Do follow people who give you great info. Do put the fact you're an educator in your bio, all right? I shouldn't have to look. And do keep your professional and personal Twitter separate, right? Because just do. And put your email address in that box. It's no big deal, even though Experian tells me that I'm social media flags, because I have my email address there. If I want to, I have 240 characters to write back to you. I don't want to do like 17 tweets when you ask me a question. I just want to email you with the information. So put your email there, school email. Do take advantage of the list feature. There's a feature in Twitter, if you never follow anybody, you can put people on a list. Like say you go to my page and I have an EdTech list. You can see all the people that I have on this EdTech list, and you can say, oh, that's great, that's a good list. I'm gonna take that list. That's social media. You just take that list. You're not following them. I don't have a superintendent list where I keep a whole bunch of superintendents. And I don't often go there to see what they're saying. But if I'm interested in what they're saying on something, I just go to the list. I do not follow all the superintendents in my Twitter feed. It would be too much. But if I need something from an EdTech person, or I need something for a superintendent, I can still look at things. So in Twitter, you don't even have to be a Twitter user to use Twitter. You can just use Twitter search and go see and find good things. Do you remember it's not the number of followers you have, but how you collaborate with them that matters? Right? It's not about competition, although I am rather competitive. Do you remember if you're blocked by someone you follow, it may just be that they want to keep their audience to those they know. Right? Like I block certain things, sometimes mistakenly. And then they tell me, why did you block me? And I say, who are you? And then they tell me, like, oh, sorry, I must have made a mistake. But do you remember not to be offended if someone you follow doesn't follow you? I have 61,000 followers. Imagine if I followed everyone, I'd never find any information, right? I can write to them and ask them a question. I can follow them for a little while and then not follow them anymore. Or I can just put them on a list, a big list, 60,000. Each person decides how to hone their own personal learning. Do you remember it's not useful or appreciated to put someone's Twitter handle in a tweet just to get noticed? Right, so if someone will put Kathy Schrock and will be about, selling logs at Christmas time. I see it. They do that because all my followers see it too. Right? They're trying to get the word out about something. It's not appreciated. So I don't care who they are, I block them at that point. Of course, having a virtual PLN is a great idea, but don't forget to take the time to connect with educators when you go to conferences. It's really fun if you are on Twitter and you never met the person face to face and you go to a Twitter meetup, all of a sudden you get to meet people in real life, which is sometimes then you block them after that. One of my long-running passions has been teaching students how to critically evaluate information on the web. This fake news stuff has been around since I started in 1995 on the web. There's nothing new. So when I say long running, you can see from this October 1996 screenshot of my first website, even by then I had included website evaluation. Right? Of course, this is the questions that were on it. But basically, back then, when you were evaluating a site, if it took forever to come in, you couldn't use it in a classroom, right? So that's what the kind of question was not there anymore. However, even though these forums help students practice the critical evaluation of online information, I believe it's important for them to go through the process. It's kind of like multiplication. Have this sheet, 27 criteria, yes, no, not applicable, little summary. You go through that, and once you do it 2 or 3 times, you internalize what you're looking for bias, anti-bias, but you're looking for certain things, so feel free to use the forms. Even a simple list, some teachers turn this into a bookmark, so students, when they're looking at web information, have this at their fingertips, rather than a formal form. All right, I have another whole page dealing with that, so take your time. Another important avenue for critical evaluation in my mind is the gathering of useful sites and information. All right, this is called curation. And I believe learning how to personally curate information, whether you're a teacher or a student, is important to the educational process. There are tons of curation tools. I've tried them all. I happen to be stuck on Microsoft OneNote. They're adding more and more to that. They're adding a lot of accessibility features to it, which it's something I wouldn't use, but definitely something students. It'll read out loud, it'll highlight the words as it's reading and so on. Pinterest I use for sites. And Feedly for the creation of blogs. How many people read blogs? And how many people use a blog aggregator? Okay, so if you go to Feedly and type in feedly.com and you type in the URL of your blog, they'll all be there. And you only have to go to all the blogs you read, and then you just go to that one place and they're all there. Anytime a new one comes, you can see it. It saves a lot of time. All of these other passions come together with my belief that students should be able to use a technology device throughout the day. I don't care if it's a Carter Chromebook that lives in the classroom, a BYOD initiative, or a school-provided iPad or laptop. I want our students to be able to look at the device, have the device to look up something that they kind of miss or want to know more about. Older kids get that email or tweet that they've been waiting for. I talked about Chris last night with Chris. What if we had a box out there when you came in here, you had to put any electronic device that you had on you in that box? All right? We know that we often at faculty meetings, well, you don't, I'll just talk about it. At faculty meetings, whatever. You look up that email, you check, send a note home, you'll be home 20 minutes, right? But you come back, right? You don't completely check out. So why can't students do that too? Why do we say you can't use that iPad till I tell you can turn it over, right? That's me. So I now have clocked in with my current EdTech passions. Let's take a look at the passions of others. I asked my very smart Twitter followers about their EdTech passions and created this word cloud from their answers. And then I asked some of my friends to give me a little bit of time and tell us about their EdTech passion.
Isabella, my EdTech passion is coding, or specifically the idea that kids can sit down in front of a machine and not just play games and not just do collaborative documents, but they can actually create something that's really cool and special to them. So, encourage kids to code and to learn how to use the computer to make things that matter to them.
Hello, this is Rashawn Richards. My EdTech passion is how tools can help people understand and care for one another better than they might be able to without those tools.
Hi, it's Tina Fatakis here from Australia, and my EdTech passion is using technology to connect and collaborate online with my amazing PLN.
Hi, my name is Steve Dembo, and my EdTech passion is helping teachers find new and creative ways to remix their lessons with technology.
So now it's up to you to decide what areas of EdTech you're going to be passionate about. I hope I have given you some ideas today. And links to all the items I talked about are at this URL. So Thank you.
Yay. Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate it. One more time for Kathy. We've got a few minutes to get to where we're going to get to. We've put door signs up, so hopefully they're helpful in getting to where you want to go. The 128s through 130s are down towards the cafeteria. 200s are obviously above the 100s. So, don't forget, after our 1 o'clock session, we're all coming back here. And I'll make some PA announcements in the next. Let you all know to get out the door. Have a great day.